Have you ever noticed how many animals can sleep just about anywhere or anytime? Cats, for example, can sleep up to 20 hours a day. Bears, we know, sleep for weeks and months at a time. Horses sleep standing up. The animal kingdom just seems to have their sleeping act together, with one exception: sheep. Sheep are not natural-born sleepers. There's a guy named Philip Keller who wrote a book named A Shepherd's Look at the 23rd Psalm. Philip Keller was a shepherd most of his younger years. He was born in Kenya. And he says that 4 things have to be in place in order for sheep to even lay down and rest. First, they need to be free from fear of attack. They need to be free from friction and tension within the flock. They need to be free from aggravation like flies and gnats biting at them. And they have to have a full tummy. If those things aren't in place, sheep will fight sleep. They don't go to sleep. And when sheep don't sleep, they start to lose their health. Their coats get a little bit straggly or coarse. They lose weight. And when their health deteriorates, that's not good for the flock, for the shepherd. That's how it goes with sheep and sleep. Do you know what other mammal has some of the same issues with sleep? That's right, humans. In order for us to sleep, everything needs to be just right. Maybe that's why we count sheep. You know, since they're up and we're up, we might as well put them to some good use. Well, just like sheep, we aren't natural-born sleepers. So sometimes we need help. Some people use alcohol. Some use sleeping pills. Some use food. Some people have the TV on all night just so they can sleep. And if these things don't work, we go through our day half awake. And our skin loses color. We get dark circles under our eyes. Our health deteriorates. And we're not very good in that condition. Sleep doesn't come easily for many of us. Do you know that's why God promises sleep as one of his blessings? Out of his many blessings, one of them is sleep. He says in Proverbs 3:24, when you lie down, you won't be afraid, and when you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Sheep don't sleep well because by nature they tend to be panicky and jittery. They can't properly defend themselves, so they're always ready to run for their lives. If a dog is too close barking at them, they scatter in every direction. They challenge other sheep to fight. By nature, some of them, Keller says, are they just want to keep things stirred up. And if these bully-type sheep, these problem makers, if they're not put in their place, they create constant unrest for the rest of the flock. Aren't they sounding more and more like their human counterparts? Keller makes this observation. He says, in the course of time, I came to realize that nothing so quieted and reassured the sheep as to see me in the field. He says that the presence of the shepherd puts the sheep at peace. They didn't panic so easily. They didn't fight so much. They were able to lie down in peaceful sleep. It works the same with you and me. Nothing more reduces stress like the presence of our shepherd. I mean, have you ever assessed yourself in these Sunday celebration gatherings? Like either while you're here or as you're walking out, doesn't the stress level seem to go down a little bit? You feel a little more at peace? Well, that's only natural. We say around here that Jesus inhabits our praises, that when 2 or more are gathered in his name, there he is right in our midst. Of course our stress would go down when the shepherd is right with us. When we're living our lives in close connection to Jesus Christ, our shepherd, we can rest easier, we can relax, we can have peace. Sheep and humans need to know that things are going to be all right. And we can know that. The shepherd will take care of us if we will let him. Verse 2 of the 23rd Psalm says, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. David the shepherd is talking about living life in satisfied peace. He's talking about being under the care of the great shepherd. And this image he paints is almost a lazy afternoon where the sheep can rest comfortably on this full tummy. Sounds good to me. Shepherds usually have their flocks graze in the rougher pastures in the morning when everybody's fresh and stronger. And then as the day continues, he leads them into greener, more fertile pastures. So by the time the afternoon comes and they've been grazing on the best grass and drinking from the still streams, well, then they're able to sleep in a comfortable, cool, nice, quiet place. And they can wake up and know that everything's going to be all right. We can experience that same thing. God is ready to help us be in green pastures, lie down next to still waters. He will do this if we will accept his offer to live a satisfied life. How do we get there? Well, there's 3 more habits I want to give you this week to help adopt this. Last week, I gave you some homework. This week, I'll give you a little homework so we can put this into practice. The first thing to obtaining this peace that I'm talking about is that we surrender to the leadership of Jesus. Now, that doesn't sound all that profound because you hear it a lot, but we need to be reminded of that. Here's the deal. You may say, well, you know, I surrendered my life to Christ when I became a Christian. Well, that's true, you did, but surrender is not a one-time event. It has to be done daily. Every day we need to seek the leadership of God in our lives. Keller talks about the sheep's inability to lead themselves. He talks about having bought this sheep farm that was terribly mismanaged. The fields were overgrazed and grass wouldn't grow anymore. The slopes were eroded and the sheep trails were overused to the point of becoming gullies. And it was all because the previous owner left the sheep to struggle for themselves. He put them in this big fenced field and left them to graze and drink and rest all by themselves. Not very good for sheep. They don't know how to graze selectively. They just eat the grass all the way down to the root and leave nothing but dirt, and then they move over to the next spot. Keller also says that it was hard to lead them to still waters to drink. They didn't know how to get there on their own. In fact, they would stop at every mud hole and try to drink that water. It was dirty, it was unhealthy, but they didn't know the difference. Sheep can't lead themselves well, and neither can we. We're just not good at it. Left to our own devices, we eat too much, we fight too much, we sabotage our most important relationships, we make a mess of things and create a lot of unhappiness for ourselves and for others. Living a satisfied life means we acknowledge that God knows more than we do. He's a better leader than we are. The Bible says he knows us better than we know ourselves. He doesn't promise an easy life, but he does promise peace. So if you're not experiencing any peace on a daily basis, if you're not consistently experiencing moments of contentment and satisfaction, you're really missing out on something he wants to give you. Now don't get me wrong, we all face challenges, We all go through the valley, as we'll hear David soon say. But if God is not leading you, on some occasions, into moments of peace and satisfaction, well, you've got to ask yourself, maybe He isn't leading you at all. If peace eludes you, this is where you begin each day. You surrender that day, those moments coming up, surrender that part of your life to God's leadership, to Jesus Christ. All right, here's the second thing to have peace. Identify your green pastures and still waters.